So I'm pleased to be joined with Steve Klassen. You're the Regional Director of Athletes in Action's Youth Initiatives. And, you wrapped up summer a little while ago, but a big part of the summer was the summer camps that Athletes in Action put on. And so I'd love to kind of chat about that. And, so I guess a good place to start is like what sports were offered this year.
Sure. Well, we run a thing called multisport, though that is a lesser known. The primary focuses for us are basketball, volleyball, and soccer. And we run those in various communities across the province. So we're in Winnipeg, Winkler, Steinbach, Niverville, Morris. I'm going to leave someone out, Morden. We're kind of all over the place.
And what's the importance of getting into like all those different communities too, and not just being in Winnipeg or being in Steinbach or whatever?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think is really important about our ministry is the fact that we are bringing those opportunities into communities. We're not expecting people to accommodate us and commute an hour and a half, and in the case of a Winkler or a Morden, 3 hours round trip to try and bring their kids out to experience our camps. So we go out to those communities, and we've got a great relationship with several of the school divisions, as well as some community centers and churches that open their gyms to us and, allow us to run our programming.
And what was a highlight for you? Like looking back on the summer, is there something that really sticks out for you?
Yeah, there's lots. We served close to 1,000 kids this summer. And so, there's oodles of stories built in. For me, I think one of the big things that I celebrated this year is the fact that we overcame the big challenge that came at the outset of the season. It seems that God likes to use big challenges at the very beginning of any season to remind me that He's the one that's in control and the outcomes are not my responsibility. My job is to continue to move forward and be faithful with what I'm given. If I reflect back, the last few years have been, we had back-to-back years where going into camp and going into coaches training, I found myself in the hospital undergoing lung surgery. Then last year, I lost my cousin during the week of coaches training to overdose. And so every day was back and forth to him in the hospital while he was in a coma. And the incredible thing was, though, through every one of those circumstances is, Athletes in Action, we have sort of three mantras that we base our ministry on. And those things are that we are passionately committed to what we do, that we live in authentic community, and that we play together. Play is like this really fundamental, important thing that is a part of building relationship and trust. And so it was cool for me, even though those were difficult circumstances, it was cool for me to be able to exemplify those things to my coaches during coaches training, right? We had to say goodbye to my cousin. And so I was there that morning when they unhooked all of the machines, which was really hard. And then I came straight to coaches training to share my heart with my coaches and to talk about where everyone was at. And they cried with me and they prayed with me. And it was like this really incredible thing. And so this year, to be honest, I was kind of looking over my shoulder a little bit like, okay, so what's the emergency going to be this year? And lo and behold, this year it was financial. Much like many other nonprofits, we experienced a significant loss in our staffing income. There's a government grant that many of us rely on that was something that was started by the previous government, and with the change in government came a change in that program. And so while some were cut to zero, we were blessed to receive some, but it really changed the planning part of our season because, of course, that money covers the bulk of our staffing costs. And so when I'm planning how many camps we're going to run, it's largely predicated on how many staff can I hire? How many coaches will I have? Because we have to have certain ratios. We want to make sure that we're available to build relationships with kids. And so we can't have one coach for 20 children. It's 1 to 7 or 1 to 8 at the outside. And so knowing that I could only hire 10 coaches meant that I really had to minimize is the wrong word. I had to lean down the amount of camps that we were able to run, which forced me to look hard at every dollar that we spent, the resources that we had, I had the opportunity to build some new relationships with different people within some of those aforementioned churches and gym owners and things. And amazingly, for me, one of the big highlights is the fact that, I came to my wife all stressed, talking about how hard this was going to be, and I didn't know how it was going to work out. And she was quick to remind me that come September or October, we're going to be looking back and we're going to be celebrating what God did. And that's exactly what happened. Because we ended up filling our camps to capacity. We had overflow. We had waiting lists. So it was a real blessing and a real opportunity, I think, to look hard at the resources that we are blessed with and to learn to better use them, because in a season of need, it really forced me to look more closely. So yeah, we just feel incredibly blessed. Normally at this time of year, I'm resting, I'm recovering, and I really went out on a high note this year, and I'm on top of the world right now.
Wow, that's incredible. And, speaking just like kind of going through the ups and downs, like you were just talking about, waiting for something bad to happen. In those moments, obviously it's a lot easier said than done, I'm sure. But how does that strengthen your faith, or what is that like for you when you're kind of going through those hard moments? Yeah,
well, fortunately or unfortunately, my wife and I have been through many of those types of circumstances over the last decade or so, and I think that we've coined a term called the power in powerlessness. There is a joy to be found in the letting go, in the being put in a position where the results are outside of your control, and you're forced to give it to God and allow Him to do what He wants to do. And because we have seen that repeatedly over and over the years, I think what's happened is our default setting has really been reset to a place of trust. And so even though I still experience stress, and I was a little stressed at the beginning of the year because I wasn't sure what this was going to look like, right, I also knew deep down that my wife was absolutely right, that we were going to look back and be celebratory about where we went and what this journey looked like and how we arrived at the place that we arrived at. And so, ultimately, we ended up having one of our best seasons ever in the face of some of our strongest adversity, which is hard to say when, you kind of look back at what some of the other adversity was, but money's a big challenge. Yeah.
And I guess, just setting it up practically of what is that going to look like? How you want to have all these kids come into the camp, but if you don't have the staff to kind of help facilitate that, it makes it
absolutely
way more of a challenge. So yeah, I guess kind of also about that, as these kids are coming in, you're obviously a focus is sports, but also a focus is faith. So how do you how do you mix those two?
They go together hand in hand. Play has this incredible capacity to break down barriers. And it doesn't matter whether it's a board game or whether you introduce a ball into a group of kids. You can take kids from any social background and introduce an element of play, and there is bonding that happens almost immediately. And so because we are there to share Jesus with kids and to share Jesus' love, we want to be the hands and feet of Jesus in those spaces. Sports has this incredible capacity to break down barriers. And so we also have the luxury then, because I am very blessed in the coaches that I've had an opportunity to hire. I have professional athletes that coach for me. I have university athletes that coach for me, all of whom are Jesus-loving Christians. And many kids from every walk of life will tolerate our Christianity in order to find themselves in a place where they can share space with those athletes, right? Because who doesn't want to learn volleyball from a professional volleyball player, right? And so it's very unique in that way. And I think that we gain access to the lives of kids that would never find themselves in a VBS or in a church setting outside of a funeral or a wedding. And the trust factor that is built through play gives us opportunity to, number one, share our own stories, because vulnerability provokes vulnerability, right? When we're willing to talk about something that's hard, I think we're giving kids the space also to talk about the things that are hard in their lives, because there is an inherent trust there. And so sports really, I mean, it has an incredible power to influence people. And that's easy to see when you read the newspaper. When you look online, sports is very, very prevalent. And so, yeah, it gives us access into people's lives that I don't believe we would otherwise have access to.
Absolutely. And really just fostering that safe spot, like you were saying, just if you're vulnerable with them, they're like, okay, we can trust you. Like you said, building that relationship.
We call it the secret sauce.
There you go. There you go. And so looking forward for Athletes in Action, what is to come? Obviously, summer camp isn't going to be happening right now. It's not the summer, but the next number of months, what's on the schedule or? Yeah.
So the fall for us in Manitoba, and it looks a little bit different across the regions. In Manitoba, what tends to happen, the rhythm is this really becomes a fundraising season for us. There's a lot of planning and a lot of work that goes into our spring programming as well as our summer programming. I hire an entirely new staff every year. This year was 10 coaches, which was a small number comparatively. And so basically we try and get our funding to a healthy level by the time December 31st rolls around. And then everything from that point forward is pointed towards our spring clubs programming, as well as our summer camps programming. And then as the dust settles from all of that, then we reflect back and realize that we have depleted all of our funds and it is time to get back into fundraising season again, which is a blessing in a lot of ways. It's a challenge for sure, but it also provides opportunities to build relationships, which is really fun, and also to create awareness for what we do, because if you don't have kids that are of camping age, you might not know the importance of what we do in our communities.
And so if there's maybe someone listening or watching this right now and they're like, okay, I want to help support Athletes in Action.
Yeah.
I want to give financially or just get more information about what's going on. Where's the best place for them to do that?
Yeah, so we have a couple of different opportunities as far as that part goes. We do have, for business owners out there, we have a corporate sponsorship package for those who would like to be involved in that way, which offers some level of recognition for your brand at our camps and clubs programming. But for those that wish to donate, then you can certainly go about it that way as well. And I would say the easiest way to go about it is just to contact me, right? My email address is Stephen with a PH. My last name is Klassen, so it's Stephen K at athletesinaction.ca. Or you can feel free to reach out to me via text or phone, which is 204-474-1718. And I would love to have a conversation with you.
All right. Well, Steve, thank you so much for joining us and kind of filling us in on what happened this summer. And, we're excited to see what Athletes in Action does in the year coming up.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me back.